Well, the first thing I think is for the president to set a new tone. And one of the things I want to do is, as president, on a regular basis, starting the moment after I'm inaugurated and actually starting before, during transition, is to invite leadership of the other party, along with leaders, Democratic congressional leaders, to regular meetings, weekly or every other week, to sit down and tackle big problems, and to recognize that there are going to have to be some compromises. We're not going to all get our way, but that we've got a set of problems that this country is facing. The jobless rate is the highest in 5 years. We have more housing foreclosures than any time since the Great Depression. 47 million people without health insurance. Social Security and Medicare on financially very rocky ground. So we're going to have to tackle these problems as a country. And a president, I think, can begin that process by saying, I'm going to listen to the other side. I'm going to take ideas that make sense. The second thing we have to do is we have to get the American people involved in the process. And one of the hallmarks of our campaign, we don't take PAC money. We don't take money from federal registered lobbyists. What we do is to build organization all across the country of ordinary people who become excited about politics again, who become engaged in politics again. And we want to continue that process, even once I'm president, because the American people can hold their elected officials accountable. And if they know what's taking place in Washington, if they are given good information about the choices that we make, then I think they can help curb some of the mischief that politicians sometimes get into in Washington. And I'll give you an example. On health care, one of the things I've said is, once I put my proposal forward, I'm going to call together a meeting with all the payers, AARP, doctors organizations, nurses organizations, hospital administrators. Everybody will get a seat at the table. Even drug and insurance companies will get a seat at the table. They just won't be able to buy every chair around the table. And we will sit down and negotiate. I will say, here's my plan. Here's how I think we can provide health care for every American and lower costs and improve quality. But I welcome ideas from Republican leadership, from industry. I want ideas that you think make sense. Here's the only thing. We'll have that meeting on C-SPAN so that the American people and AARP members all across the country can watch what's going on. And if they see a member of Congress who seems to be more concerned about drug company profits than making sure that older Americans are getting the prescription drugs they need, they will be able to hold that member accountable. So the kind of transparency in government is, I think, really important. We've already done this. I worked with a Republican, Tom Coburn, to set up something called Google for Government. What we essentially did was we posted online every single dollar of federal spending so that people can find out, look, if somebody's spending money on a bridge to nowhere, well, you can find out who that is. And we'll make sure that we use that money to build a bridge to somewhere. But it's also going to be important, and this will be the last point I make, to change the culture in Washington that's been so dominated by lobbyists and special interests. I have a track record of doing it. When I was in the state legislature in Illinois, I passed the toughest ethics reform legislation there in 25 years. When I got to Washington, despite the objections of Democrats and Republicans, I helped move forward and was the point person on the Democratic side for the toughest ethics reform legislation since Watergate. We eliminated the practice of lobbyists giving gifts to members of Congress and to buy meals for members of Congress and to lend corporate jets to members of Congress. And made sure that if they were bundling money, raising money for members of Congress, that they had to post it so that people would know what they were doing. Now, a lot of those provisions weren't initially popular with some of my colleagues in the Senate, but they were the right thing to do. We've got to change how Washington works when it comes to special interests sitting down in committee rooms and helping to write legislation. We are elected to represent the American people, to make sure that their interests are heard. And right now, their interests are being drowned out.